Hi, I'm Sayanti, the artist behind Sayanti Finance. Last year around the same time, I painted this painting with acrylics, demonstrating how to paint an easy moon with acrylics. So I thought, let's take it a little further and demonstrate how to paint a moon, like a realistic moon with acrylic paints. Now, I have painted my moon a little small because I intend to use this as a background for a painting that I'm going to share next week. But if you are going to paint a moon and only a moon for your painting, which is will be awesome anyways, you might want to paint the moon a little bit bigger. Let's get started.
I started off with coating the canvas with a layer of blue, mostly cobalt blue mixed with a little bit of phthalo blue, a little bit of dark cyan purple, some raw umber, and a tiny bit of black. And you can see that I'm not being at all looking into my brush strokes blending into each other, not concerned at all. I'm just trying to get rid of the white of the canvas and get some blue on it. And in the process, I'm getting my moon that I drew out first off, which is fine because I just wanted to make sure how big or small I wanted it for this particular painting and an approximate idea of where I want to put it. Once this initial layer dries completely, I'm coming back with a second layer where I'm adding a little bit more dark blues and added with a little bit of brown and black on the corners, especially some darkening of the corners a lot, and then coming back with my cobalt blue and trying to mix it a little bit with the dark edges and getting a nice blend here. Once again, I'm not very cautious about my brush strokes here, not trying to get the ultimate smooth blend even in this stage, because I know that I'm going to go over with another layer. It is very important to dry your painting completely between each layer, because if the paint is tacky, then you have the chance of lifting off the previous layers. So let it dry completely and then come back with a third layer, this time a little bit more dark. And this time I'm trying to blend it a little bit more cautiously, although it is not tremendously important because I'm going to paint a lot of clouds on top of this base layer. So it's all going to get kind of at the very background and it wouldn't matter very much. So that is all good for this particular painting. Once all the three layers are put on and it dries a bit, then I'm coming back with a mix of gray, which I created with mixing a slight bit of blue and black in the white, and then I'm using a stiff round bristle brush and I'm gonna paint some moons in the general area. Once again, I'm not being very cautious about the structure and shape of the clouds. I'm sorry, I probably previously said that I'm painting moon, but what I'm trying to do here is paint clouds. And it might look a little bit too white at this point, which does not really matter. Too white or too gray, it does not really matter, because I'm going to glaze some blues on top of it, which is going to push it back quite a bit. Now I'm putting a mid-tone gray on my moon, where I want to put it, and leaving it there. I'm coming back with a blue glaze, and this I have created by mixing tiny bit of purple, a lot of cobalt blue, and tiny bit of phthalo blue. And you can see that how the glaze is pushing back the clouds. I'm just using water to make the paint thin or create the glaze, but if you would rather use a glazing medium, feel free to do that. Everybody has their own preferences. For me, water works pretty good, so unless I am trying to do something specific, I do not use glazing mediums, but it is all fine to use them. And then I'm coming back with the round stiff bristle brush again and adding in some dark blues mixed with a little bit of black and brightening up, or rather darkening up, some areas in between the clouds. That would create the contrast, that would make the contrast a little bit prominent, which I'm going for, and also darken up the sky quite a bit which would be important in the long run for this particular painting. Like I mentioned in the introduction, that in this painting I'm using this moon as a background, so it's pretty small, but if you want to create a bigger moon, that would probably make a painting on itself by itself. Now onto the moon, I am using a mix of a bluish gray, black, white, a little bit of blue, and creating some of the darker patches on the moon. So one side of the moon will be darker than the other. That's the general idea. And then I'm adding a lot more white into that and creating the other side. Once I laid the darks and lights for the first time, I'm coming back with a softer brush. You can use a mop brush in this case, and blending the whole area. Now I'm darkening or defining the edges quite a bit by using a mix of very dark gray with a lot of blue. And then I'm going to come back and use a glaze of purple over most of the areas. But before that, I'm dabbing in some lighter grays in certain areas and lightening up the whole area in general. Once the purple glaze dries, in fact while it is still drying, on the left side of my moon I'm adding more purples and blues. Like I said, the left side would be the much darker than the right side, and this I'm just following a reference photo of a moon. So if you're painting a moon for the first time, it is a good idea to use a reference photo to get a very detailed, realistic look, and that is what I'm doing. Now I'm using my flat brush and putting a very bright white layer on the edges, and then slowly fading it into the grays and purples while they're still wet. I'm working wet and wet at this moment, but with time I'm going to do a lot of dry brushing. Typically I do not do a lot of dry brushing in my paintings, in acrylic paintings especially, but in this case that worked pretty good, so I kept on doing that for quite a bit. You can see that I'm coming back with the lighter gray in between the craters or the darker patches on the moon, and then I'm evening them out with using the brush and kind of creating a softer look. I would love to retain some of the edges, but some of the areas I would like to be softer too, so it's kind of going to be some soft areas and some bright and very sharp edges too. It's important to create a balance between how much sharper areas you want and how much softer look you want. That will create the realistic look on the moon. Coming back with some blues in the darker area, using it like a glaze. The blues and purples, I'm giving it a very soft look and kind of making the moon a part of the sky too. Then using a lot of white. Finally, I used a thin glaze of transparent mixing white to lighten the whole surface of the moon quite a bit, because I was feeling that the moon was looking pretty dull and gray. So I decided to use a glaze of white on the entire surface of the moon and then let it dry completely. Once that layer is completely dry, I'm going to define some of the areas once again, getting a little bit of the darker areas dark once more, and get some of the brighter areas bright again. I'm adding some more white spots here and there, not being very careful. The careless look here will make it look very nice and realistic, just like on the real moon. Finally, time for some stars. I'm creating a mix of white, adding in a little bit of water so that it's a little flowy, and then putting it on my bristle brush. I'm striking it against another brush so that I'm creating random star-like spots all over the sky. And then I'm coming back and making some of these spots a little bit prominent, so that will be a good mix of detailed look and scattered look as well. So some of the spots created by the splatter makes it look more natural. And that's about it for this painting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.